Music has the ability to draw out of a person so many different emotions. It has the power to change a generation of people in so many ways. It also has the power to literally change the world around us. So much so that it influenced me to also dabble into the music industry as an artist, manager, and eventually a writer. I had such a great career in the industry that I often would compare myself to other artists. I was part of a gangster hip hop group named Dallas Street Crooks, and it was a lot of us. There were so many of us that we were compared to the Wu-Tang Clan size wise. The music we released was pretty good in my opinion, and the impact it had on our fans created a small cult following. If you know, you know. To look at the crew we had as far as DSG goes, we were barbers, hustlers, working class guys, hoopers, and so forth. Now, why did I mention all of this? Well, it goes back to the impact that music had on me. And me being a hooper at the time and a huge Chris Webber fan, my fandom only grew when I found out that he had a hip hop song out. Man, when I had a chance to check out Chris Webber's music, I was impressed with his lyrical prowess. He has that East Coast vibe about him for sure, being born in Detroit, Michigan. He reminds me a little bit of Biggie mixed with Jay-Z. I know Chris dropped the song with Redman, and a little known fact is that Chris was also a hell of a producer. Chris was able to produce tracks for a legendary guy named Nas. The song was named Blunts and Ashes, in which Chris totally ripped that track, man. It was dope. Chris' music would surprise those who never knew he was musically inclined when it comes to hip hop. His impact on music back in 2006 and prior is still being recognized today. Now, when it comes to NBA players with some bars, Allen Iverson comes to mind. And if you have not read my article on financial fallacies, Allen's story is evident that he had a hard life and upbringing. His song 40 Bars is grimy, gangster, and beats the pain he felt as a youth growing up in Hampton, VA. Now, when you listen to his lyrical delivery, it speaks Jadakiss and a little bit of corrupt in the same breath. The boy truly got bars, and if he wasn't in the NBA, he may have had a career in hip hop. Even though there was no evidence of the NBA stopping Allen Iverson for rapping, his impact on the culture was not missed. He was the epitome of hip hop and street basketball on the NBA level. Allen really beat by his own drum, and his music reflected that. But not all music done by NBA players is of the hip hop rap genre. Some players took a soulful path into the music and were very good at playing musical instruments. One player that comes to mind who was awesome when it comes to being a guitarist is Wayman Tisdale. Wayman grew up playing the bass guitar at his father's church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was the spark that produced him to love music. Wayman was not interested in sports as a youth, but played because his older brothers did, and Wayman became highly recruited due to his high level of basketball skills. His love for music stayed with him throughout his basketball journey, so much so that he launched his album titled Power Forward through Motown Music, and the album reached number 4 on the Billboard charts in 1995 for jazz, while playing for the Phoenix Suns at the same time. His number 1 charting jazz album was titled Rebound in 2008, which stayed on the charts for 60 weeks. To say the least, the music was extremely good for jazz. His music is hard to compare to anyone, but his ability to play such a mean bass puts him in a category of his own. Tragically, Wayman passed away May 15, 2009 from complications of cancer. Little be known that Wayman and the great country music artist Toby Keith were good friends. Toby wrote the song titled Cry For Me in memory of his friend, Wayman Tisdale. Bringing it back to hip hop, and one NBA player ushered in the new generation of music and is known to drop some dope bars. Dame Dollar Lillard has generated a reputation of being a top NBA player as well as a top NBA hip-hop artist. And if you wanted to know what the acronym DOLLA stands for, Dollar, it's different on levels the Lord allows. That's so dope. What makes Dame so different from other hip-hop artists is he's not glamorizing the gangster lifestyle. His music is full of fun, partying, and living life. The evidence of his lyrical genius is in his song called Trap Party Funeral. So laid back. His rhyme style is a mix of between Drake and Jay-Z and a swig of Future. And that's saying something. As a tribute to the late great Kobe Bryant, Dame put out a single titled Kobe, which featured Snoop Dogg and Derek Million, in which the song ended up on the NBA 2K21 back in 2020. And that's a great video game if you haven't played it. Dame has a bright future in hip hop, if he so chooses to pursue that route. However, if he heals soon from his season-ending injury, the music career may have to wait and take a back seat until he continues his pursuit of an NBA championship. Speaking of NBA championships, one particular NBA player was such a dominant force, no one could handle him in the paint. He was traded from Orlando to the Lakers back in 1996. Now, who am I talking about? None other than Shaquille O'Neal, the big Aristotle. If you had a chance to read my article titled Financial Fallacies, I mentioned how Shaq was a true entrepreneur. His talents beyond basketball courts far beyond what you would imagine. Despite the obvious of him spending time with his family, he was always doing honorary stuff like being a DJ, a law officer, and film and music. He had such an illustrious career. Since I'm talking about music, let's dig into Shaq's discography and see what his musical contributions were to the world. He dropped 12 albums from 1993 to present time, and his top-selling album was his first one titled Shaq Diesel. This album went on to sell over 1 million copies, which certified it as platinum, in which it was a top 25 album on the Billboard charts for the top 200. The top song on that album was I Know I Got Skills, which was the first LP off of it. With the feature from the hip-hop artist Def Jef, the song was an instant hit. When you listen to a lot of the songs that Shaq released, you can feel the East Coast heavy on each song. To compare the big Aristotle to anyone, I would have to say a more aggressive Will Smith with a little bit of Gangstar. You gotta go look Gangstar up. Other features on some of the albums, which included some NBA players, and most notable was the late, great Kobe Bryant back in 1998. Kobe dropped a nice little bar on the song titled 3 Times Dope off the Respect album. Not my favorite song by Shaq, but Kobe put it down lyrically. But as history would tell, the two would part ways as teammates. In 2006, Shaq went to the Miami Heat, teamed up with Dwayne Wade to defeat my beloved Mavericks. It was rigged. Nonetheless, Shaq was determined to win the first championship without Kobe. The two were at odds with one another at the time, and in true fashion, once he won that championship before Kobe, Shaq had to rap about it. In 2008, Shaq was playing for Phoenix, and he happened to be at a New York nightclub. Probably still reeling from the rumor that Kobe telling Shaq's wife at the time that there's possibly infidelity in their relationship. Shaq busted out a freestyle and dropped this line. There's a difference between first and last place. Kobe, how does my ass taste? That was a vicious bar to throw at a former teammate, and I can imagine how Kobe took it at the time. Tragically, Kobe passed away in 2020 from a fatal helicopter crash that took not only his life, but his daughter Gianna's life and 7 others that were on board. Shaq was torn apart about the passing of Kobe, and he expressed that he lost a brother, and he gave a heartfelt condolences to the family. Shaq's impact on hip-hop is very noticeable, that I'm sure he inspired other NBA players to express themselves musically. Now, thinking back on my hip-hop journey with my group DSC, I can see how similar to Shaq, Chris Webber, Dame, Wayman Tisdale, and a lot of the music we did. The music we released was Southern for sure, but the impact that these NBA players brought to hip-hop reaches all coasts and countries as a whole.